I'd like to call the October 17, 2023
At least 30 seconds.
Board of Public Safety for the City of Bloomington meeting to order.
Is what it is.
I certify that we conducted an executive session today, October 17th, 2023 at 5:45 p.m. And the topic of discussion was limited to receiving information about a prospective employee. No final actions were taken by the board. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the September 19th, 2023 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? No. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, so that motion carries. All right, verbal certification of payroll.
That's correct.
Is correct.
Correct? Great. All right, let's go to the police department business.
Sorry, we're a little behind. Again, we'll start off as normal with calls for service. You'll see this month we crept up yet again. This represents a 41.5% increase over year-to-date in 2022. So we're continuing along that trend, and we'll see where it takes us. We're projecting out somewhere in the 75 to 85,000 calls before we're done for the year. Again, year-to-date crime totals, 23 versus the year end of the 21 and 22 cycles. You'll notice that we're, again, using that 40% metric. We're within the bounds of where we're getting close or have already exceeded most of the categories or some of the categories. Nothing is really shocking as far as the numbers. Some things are concerning, but we're staying on that similar track that we would expect year to year. Traffic stop comparison, again, remember we're coming back off of COVID, and that's why our numbers are coming up into the 2021 numbers where we had the big decrease in 2022. So we'll probably continue along a similar path, number of stops per month, etc.
These are stops for any reason.
They are. A lot of them are, this is not specific traffic enforcement. A lot of these are related to calls for service. You know, vehicle leaving the scene is X, or vehicle being driven by one person is Y, and the officers will stop those vehicles or have calls to stop those vehicles. Mm-hmm. We're not doing a lot of individualized traffic enforcement for the sake of traffic enforcement. So, violent crime involving weapons, again, creeping up into the territory of last year's numbers, with 3 months left to go in these recording periods, October, November, December. Probably see a little bit of decrease from last year, unless we have a big rash at the end, but again, the numbers overall still are concerning no matter how many you have. We did have the one event, as we referenced before we went into meeting yesterday. I can't say a lot about it because it's still an open criminal investigation, but there was an exchange of gunfire between 2 individuals in a crowded area of the city. On the south side, they are both in custody and will be charged as appropriate with the prosecutor's office. So, but we continue to see these things. Adult arrests, again, almost a duplicate to last year, a decrease of 2, which is statistically nothing. Again, we track along normal lines as we would expect throughout the years. Juvenile referrals, down this month, but again, we're dealing with a lot of small numbers. While you have a significant decrease statistically, we went from 8 to 4. Hate crimes. This is a hate crime reporting period, and there were 0 during the July to September months. Nuisance calls for service continue to track along a normalized line, where disturbance is the vast majority of the nuisance calls. Intoxication, which also has a disturbance component to it, and then vandalism is included in this graph as well. Training hours, we had 2 officers attend an all things canine course. 6 completed the Moyer the mandatory police training courses. 2 officers attended Honor Guard training camp. 1 supervisor attended the Police Executive Leadership Academy, which is something that's required of all of our supervisory personnel. That academy is 40 hours in length over the course of a year. So it's a week, and then they take a break, a week, and take a break. Once a quarter usually. She had 97.5 hours for canines, had 12 officers at 42 hours each. So 500 and some odd hours in total there.
How many hours does the officer have to do per year?
24.
24.
Is what's mandated. Most of our people will get 3 or 4 times that. some in excess of that. Community engagements events were down a little bit from 2022. Some of that is situational. We had some things come up last year that are a little not abnormal. They just hit us in this month. They've been in other months before. Had more hours involved this time around than we did last year. And our people, again, some staffing issues. We've fallen from 22 down to 15. Some of the ones that have happened was the officer on a train, where we had some people ride a train to see from the train's perspective how things go at crossings. We've had a couple of train fatalities. We had some train crossing accidents, and they offered this to officers around the state of Indiana to come in and actually ride it, just to see from their viewpoint, to see what they can see, and conversely what they can't see, and how fast they can stop and how fast they can stop. I'm told it was a fairly unique experience that had some valuable insight.
Where did you board?
They boarded in Indy, did they not?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, Indy, and then they rode it down here and then south. I remember where they actually stopped.
I think it stopped south of here.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Were train fatalities like like were they a mix of like people intentionally put
Don't know that any of
themselves-
them were intentional.
Okay.
For us. They both involved pedestrians on the tracks because the train simply cannot stop.
Yeah,
It's just no way. And it's a fairly one-sided accident,
Okay.
meaning that it's damage to the person and not the train.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, we do occasionally, you'll see where a train gets hit by something or hits something, you have a derailment. In this
I
case,
see.
it's just not possible, the weight involved in it.
Yeah, I'm just like wondering, like, do we need more signs, or is it a
Neither one
person?
have prevented this.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
I think
so
I
sleeping
remember.
on the tracks, right?
We had one that was either sleeping or we believe passed out on the tracks, and the other was probably doing the same, if not walking or sitting alongside the tracks.
Okay.
So again, toxicology's not back on the last one that I'm aware of, but
Okay.
traditionally that's what we've seen,
I
That's
see.
here in the
That
city
makes
of
sense.
Bloomington.
yes,
Yeah.
Wow.
both in the West 3rd Street corridors.
Wow.
International Family Welcome Orientation, we had Heroes Breakfast at Redwood, Criminal Justice Career Networking Night over at IU. We've had Police Citizens Academy, we also had the City Citizens Academy, and then we've had DRO meetings with the service providers throughout the month.
Sorry, DRO.
Downtown Resource Officer.
Thank you.
And they combined with the police social workers and other folks, and they have a meeting every month concerning what goes on there. Upcoming is weeks 5 through 9 of our Citizens Academy. We have Wonder Woman 2023 with the Bloomington Housing Authority. Boo to Drugs, which is anti-drug trick-or-treating event on the 25th. And DEA Take Back Day over at Kroger West on the 28th for those folks who have prescription meds they want to rid themselves of.
What's the Wonder Woman 2023?
Where they bring in different female officers, firefighters, and other female representatives. It used to be done, best of my recollection, at the Girls Inc.,
Girls Inc., yeah.
where they would come in, and that way the girls could interact with the female professionals, kind of get a thought toward what that profession was, what it meant to females, any barriers, any challenges, I know my daughter went one year and just loved it. So it was something that
I
they've
don't
done.
remember it, yeah.
I think it's changed names over the years,
Okay.
but this is what it has been for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I saw an advertisement through BHA, the Residents Council over at the Housing Authority.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does come up, like, it's like, oh, wait, like, it just, it's a fall event.
It generally is, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Tell me about Buddha Drugs, anti-trick-or-treating. Where's that, like, can you tell me?
do you know any more about that than I do? Because I know just enough about it to be.
That's also being done in cooperation with DEA,
Oh, okay.
The federal DEA.
the
Yes.
federal DEA, yeah. Through they call it their diversion program. I can't remember off the top of my head where it's occurring.
That's okay, I can email you.
Well, it's Kroger West.
Switchyard Park.
Ryan.
Switchyard Park, yes.
Switchyard.
Switchyard Park
Oh, okay,
Picnic
cool.
Shelter Area, 5 to 7:30 on the 25th.
Awesome, okay, cool.
Yeah, one of the people involved is one of our retired officers that moved up to DEA's diversion program.
Oh, great, okay.
So that's
Cool.
nice to have him
Yeah.
bring back, so.
And there's gonna be several organizations there, us, DEA, I believe Ellettsville, the Sheriff's Department, State Police.
Yeah.
So it'll be a big community event, but
No,
it's
that's
sponsored
great.
through them.
Yeah, that's the same time as the Fairview Trunk or Treat, so I'll let them know, you know,
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
it, so
come on
that's
down.
cool, yeah.
Oh,
Please-
and that, sorry, the drug take-back day?
Yes.
People can come bring their.
Yes,
Yep.
Any.
anything,
Prescription drugs.
prescription.
Prescription.
If you want, if you've got a
Okay, I
bag
was
of
gonna say,
cocaine,
it's
you want to
not
get
a
rid of
no
it.
questions asked
Yeah.
thing, okay.
No,
All right.
it's for those folks that have, you know, you've got the prescription drugs that you don't need anymore.
You don't wanna flush them down the.
You don't wanna
toilet.
flush, we don't want them flushed down the toilet, you bring them out to Kroger's West, and then DEA has a,
Yeah.
disposal process for those.
And I imagine the city's gonna get the word out about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll push that on our social media, the
Right.
city will as well. Again, just to give the people the opportunity, because we get a lot of calls about this almost weekly,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of folks who have substantial amounts of these that, you know, if a loved one dies or something like that, they're left with nothing to do with it, so they
Yeah.
bring them out.
yeah.
Police social workers, they had 23 this month, 296 total contacts. You can see the summaries that we had PSW and entertained some pet food, as well as human food for community partners from a client. Had a client help them sign up for housing and assisted with some food resources in the interim until they could get them in. And then we had a client where they had some community resources and opportunities. This person was desperately lonely, and it really kind of got them into some place where they had people to talk to on a regular basis, and somebody other than the 911 operators and the officers that got sent. And I think they're going to make a real difference in this person's
Do you
life.
recall where they helped that person engage? or
I
not?
know it's in a couple different areas.
Okay,
They were working on 2 or 3, and I hate to say which one.
yeah, don't worry, I'm
Yeah,
just curious.
but they were able, if I'm correct, this was an elderly person, so there's a couple places they reached out to.
Area
and
10 maybe?
It was
they-
one of them,
Yeah.
yes. General business, really don't have anything other than the hiring process that we talked about with you guys earlier. As far as purchases or expenditures and procurements, you will continue to see vehicles trickle in.
That's good.
1 or 2 at a time here. We're coming to the end of that. As far as the ones we're finishing up now with all the equipment and everything else, they were ordered almost 2 years ago now. I think we've got 3 left to build, and then we should be done for the year. Hopefully that will start again very quickly in the first of the year. We have some challenges right now with both the expenses with the cars because they're getting more expensive. They took another rise, which is unfortunate, and then availability because of the UAW being on strike. We're not sure
Yeah,
Yeah.
what our lead time is going
yeah.
to be.
What are the new vehicles you're getting, the brand, you know, like,
The one we ordered, right, we're down to really 2 brands that we're buying. We're buying Dodge. In this case, it's the Durango Police Edition, and we're buying the Ford. It's called the Interceptor. Again, it's a Police Edition
okay,
of the vehicles that really it's the only game left. They've stopped making any cars. No one is offering a vehicle at this point other than the SUVs. So we're left with that, and you really only have 3 on the market, which is those 2 I just spoke of and the Chevy Tahoe.
oh, okay, so
but-
no more Chargers or
Nope.
anything? Oh.
Charger's done. They may have a few left trickle out. I always hate it when they say that. We may have a few left trickle out, which means you're sending us spare parts. You're sending cars assembled for what you had left.
Yeah,
Now, supposedly the Charger will make the comeback in a year or 2 with a facelift and a couple other things. Ford is just reintroduced the Taurus, which they're promising will eventually come back as a police car,
Wow,
which has been a workhorse for us for 6-7 years. I mean, those cars have basically been bulletproof, transmission, engine, the whole 9 yards. Kind of looking forward to that, but right now, the only game in town is, for us, the Durango and the Ford. We don't want to introduce a Chevy into that because that creates a whole bunch of issues with parts for fleet and tires and upfitting and the whole 9 yards.
if there was good availability, would your preference to have a mix?
You know, we used to do that. When I hired on, we always had half the Ford fleet, half the fleet Ford, half the fleet Dodge or Chevy, and you got to choose back and forth because Dodge had exited the market at the time. Then we got into the point where Chevy exited the market, so we went to Dodge and Ford. For years, we had been at the mercy of whatever the state bid was, and the state seemed to want to move back and forth every year, which is why you had half and half. Because one year the state bid would be Ford, the next year it would be Chevy. You could count on it. Now, there's so many different organizations and agencies who've gone out and done their own bidding process for open bids. where we have been buying off the Indianapolis contract for the last several years, although we have bought some off the state contract as well. A lot of it, particularly in the last 2 years, has been what can we find where?
Okay.
Because we'll order a certain number, and sometimes you're ordering blind. I don't even know what's going to cost. It'll be a range. So, you know, a good example is this year we ordered blind. We could afford this many. We knew we could afford that many, but then it come in, frankly, less than what we were expecting,
That's good.
which left us some money to go out and buy more. But by then, the order get closed, so now you're literally calling around going, what do you got sitting on the lot? Because there was no more ordering.
Yeah.
So that's been a game we've been playing for the last couple of years and been fairly successful with it. I would anticipate, given a choice, we will probably try and standardize on the Ford product.
Okay.
It seems to be the more durable of the two. Not that Dodge makes a lesser product, but for our uses, it seems to be a little bit more durable.
Oh, that makes sense.
You'll see some other things for MDTs, mobile data terminals, laptop computers, hardened laptop computers, and you'll probably see some issues yet on radios yet this year. I'm not sure if those bills have come to you yet or not. And then we move to personnel issues, where we continue to have people off on light duty. There's 3 right now on extended light duty and or sickness. We have, I'm sorry, 4. We have 4 off on that. Still a number of people in training. We have one at the academy. He just graduated, didn't he?
No, we have one at
At the academy. And then we are asking you to extend the offer of employment to
Right.
another.
Which leads me to ask, can I get a motion to offer Carrie Green a conditional offer of employment as a sworn officer that is contingent upon Ms. Walden Ms. Green, successfully completing the remaining steps in the hiring process, physical examination, psychological examination accepted by local and state pension boards.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
No, thank you for
Fantastic
the,
candidate.
yeah, good write-up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was, yeah, and explanation during executive session.
Fantastic.
Hearing none, all in favor, or we've heard some, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. All right.
And there were no cert deployments this month using the ARB. Over the fire.
Wait, what are our numbers again? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Our
Like,
numbers
you know,
for
like,
what?
how many were down?
We're down 22 as of right now.
Okay,
So,
We have a couple pending retirement, we believe.
okay,
So we'll go down a little bit more.
okay.
First, you just extended offer employment to 1. I think you just completed the initial phases of a hiring process of a couple more. So we're still in that phase before they're brought to you,
So in the 20s still?
probably.
Okay, okay,
We'll probably finish there by the end of the year.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. No, it's been a tough, you know, month and week and all of that, so, yeah,
Kind of goes along with it.
yeah.
All right, on that note, we'll move into fire department statistics. There's a couple things that I'd like to point out for the board. This is a historically high month. Looking back through all the historical data, we have never run this many calls in a month. There are several factors on this particular month that we tracked down. IU had nearly double the false alarm calls that they normally get. But we also opened 2 major housing developments that also each contributed anywhere in the realm of 18 to 30 calls each for false alarms. Have issues with people coming into brand new apartments, electrical shorts causing appliances to spontaneously burst into flame. All kinds of weird things have happened in some of these places. But just those 2 alone, there's 146 total false alarms, but we were at 613 calls for the month, which has never happened in the history of Bloomington.
Has RPS, is RPS working with you? You know, like, what can we do to mitigate some of that?
Or are these private?
These are private properties.
Oh, this is not just, on-campus housing. Okay, these are private properties.
It's a
Okay.
lot of the off-campus student housing projects that two major ones of them went online. The one that's used to be the Kmart East.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the buildings are now partially occupied. There's a few units that haven't been signed off on.
Mm-hmm.
We've run into a lot of weird things because of how quickly they put those up. But anyway, just this one particular, we were able to track down the trend of where it's at.
And so are we seeing more like electrical things or more like, or false alarms, like, let's just go like push the alarm?
No, the one good thing that's happened in our partnership with IU is what we would term as user caused on purpose. They don't tolerate.
Okay.
We not only do they go to expel students for that, but the city is involved in actually prosecuting those people for doing that.
But how about like the private apartment buildings?
We don't generally have those problems in
Okay.
that. It was a lot of student-led behavior, and that's been made perfectly clear through years and years that it is not tolerated.
Okay,
So that
okay.
that malicious alarm intent, that rarely happens, and if it does, it's maybe one event before everyone rats on everyone, or now they have cameras up in a lot of places.
I remember being on a high floor in Forest and getting annoyed at 2 o'clock in the morning, then we all had to leave the dorm.
Yep.
Okay,
So, but that is a significant cause. We have been addressing one particular issue with IU. It is a programming issue. So fire code changes, they used to not alert until 2 devices activated in a building. So if you were in your dorm room, you set off a smoke detector, it would not actually call us. We had to make a decision to not go and have IUPD go on these and then tell us if it was really on fire, or we had to start going on a single device activation. Obviously, when it hits 2 or more, it's generally something significant. 1 device happens way more often. We're working on a couple programming issues, and IU has promised to make it right, but it will be a fairly significant expense for them to go back and reprogram all their buildings.
When you say programming, you mean like the software behind the fire detection systems?
Yep. The software that guides what levels of events in the building send outside notifications.
I see.
Because again, we had to make a tough choice of, they wanted to cut us off all the calls, have an officer go, and if it was really on fire, call us.
I see. So IU wanted that.
That was an initial proposal, and understanding that we're understaffed for these large buildings with a lot of people, that is not for a time for us to get behind the ball and show up 10, 15 minutes after a fire started. We need to be there. So we knew when we signed up for it, it was going to add some of the call volume, but it's added quite a bit more than what was anticipated. So they're working on other programming issues to try to help alleviate that.
So just making sure I understand this, this has just happened this year?
No, this has been an ongoing issue, but we finally identified how we could potentially fix it through the
Got
programming.
it. I see. And so the programming changes haven't happened yet.
Correct.
Okay, I see. Because I thought what you were saying was that the programming changes were resulting in a bunch of
No, a fire code change where they had to go back and realign.
I see.
How basically this building was already functioned that way, but it used to just go to IUPD.
Got it. Right.
And they were like, well, we'll just cut you out of the call altogether, and that was not okay with us.
Right. So now, the current state, like today, is changing the programming. That's an inaction process.
Yes.
But in the meantime, they are calling you.
Yes.
When all the time now, or?
It's always been whenever the building system activates, they would call us. When they had to go back after the code revision, they were anticipating these big issues and tried to cut us out of the call altogether.
I see.
Knowing a vast majority of them are false, but we couldn't take the chance on
I see.
not going on the one time it may be legitimate.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be compliant with law either, would it?
As long as it's notified out to an authority, which they are an authority, it's not the fire authority. It's a kind of a gray area of the law. They were required to have these report out. And then what do they do with those reportings was the question. The issue we had is it doesn't change whether it's 1 device, 2 devices, 10 devices. They get a call, and then what do they do with it? We could not take the chance that it was 1 device or 10 devices, and then they were going to wait until an officer got around to go in and look at it. So, but again, it's a very long-term fix because it will be a very significant expense for them to go and reprogram every building to make do with what we're asking for. As you can see, they're kind of on their normal cycle. We actually had a reduction in almost every other call type at IU, but the false alarms went through the roof, but had fewer fire calls, fewer medical calls, fewer of everything else. So
Kind of good. Right,
a call is a call, but yeah, no poor outcomes. Heat mapping is not significantly changed, with the exception of downtown is getting lit up quite a bit more. And that's normal for this time of year, when we start seeing people at all the bars, restaurants. That's pretty significant when students come back. I think police could go ahead and vouch for that as well, just the drunk, disorderly, people having issues like that. Again, not much change in this. We are looking with the new position next year, that will be their sole focus is things like this, drilling down into it and figuring out what the issue is. I will tell you the vast majority is that we're still just kind of out of position. The new Station 1, when it's reopened, we realign all the resources where they're supposed to be. A lot of this will clear itself up. So again, it's not firefighters not getting on the trucks quickly, it's firefighters that have to travel through long hallways to get to where they're going, things like that. Same thing on the fire, not much of a statistical change. And again, until we get at least a year of data in here, we're not going to be able to show trending.
Right.
First arriving, you'll notice for the first time on this one that we did not have any in the yellow, which means completely non-compliant. So again, just depending on how many calls of each type. This particular one, everyone was just happened to be there when they were supposed to be, and everyone was in position, and we didn't have multiple calls going on at the same time for that.
Wait, sorry, can you, I can't read, can you tell, blue and green?
Yeah, blue is, for this particular one, it's the less than or equal to 240 seconds, so that's the 4 minutes.
Okay.
And then green is the 240 to 480. So basically, the green is within the window of within double of the national standards, but what we've been shown here in Bloomington is just because it's out of national standards doesn't mean poor outcomes. We started seeing poor outcomes if it exceeded that 480. So that's the reason why the three portions of the pie chart are available, and you see no yellow on this one. So we had a good month. Inspection goal, this is the highest it's ever been, and I'll keep saying that every month until we conclude the year. We've also educated more adults and children. These are still not back to pre-pandemic numbers, but it's really good. Smoke detector installs, everything is on track. And then next month, so the October report should show a big improvement in our K through 12. So it is Fire Prevention Week last week, things like that do play into how we get into the schools.
And that's 74% of your goal, right? Not 74% of all inspectable things.
That is correct. I'll remind the board that this year we realigned the goal to something that was more obtainable.
Reasonable. Yep.
We still have the goal to be in every building, but what we did was pick the 1,600 highest hazard occupancies.
Yep.
We are still working on a self-inspection portion for the low hazard occupancies.
Cool.
So things that there's almost no fire risk. I mean, no building has none, but we're really spending our time in the places that traditionally catch on fire.
Yep.
Training hours are way above the line. Again, that line represents if we were 100% staffed. What this does show is it's a lot of the recruit training. It's not just the 10 new recruits, it's also all the crews that have to go and help. Like today, we did live burns. You can't just put 10 new people in a building. That is a heavy draw on resources. So like the entire shift rotated out today and all got live burn time helping out with those. The mobile integrated healthcare.
I actually had a question that
Sure.
that maybe I wanted to formulate earlier as well with police is so it's for both of you. Like, how do you decide what training is offered each cycle? And is this all the chief making the decision, and same with police, or like who's deciding it? How are you deciding it? Like, how do we know, hey, we're gonna do canine training, right? And how do we set those targets and goals?
Okay. Well, for us, it depends on what the officer's job function is.
Of course,
So for those
right.
canine
Right.
officers, that's a monthly thing. For the SWAT officers, it's a monthly thing. For the
That's set nationally, or that's
It's set by our priorities. Now, there are some national standards which we always eclipse. It's just a question of what are we seeing locally? What challenges do we see forthcoming? Do we have any special needs? Again, is there something we've seen or something that concerns us or something that's emerging nationally and internationally,
Right.
that we're gonna effort. For the rank and file, it is what are the state mandates, but again, what trends do we see that we either have to mitigate or that we're working toward a capability set that we may or may not have, or are we reinforcing that capability set that we already exists and just making sure we're well grounded in the basic building blocks of that, or do we want to drive that capability set in a different way?
And how is that decision made at the police level?
Well, a lot of it is made by the unit leaders, the sub-unit leaders. It trickles up to the operations captain who has an immense training background. The requests are made through training request forms that, hey, we want some
From the
people with
unit
this.
leader?
No, from the officer themselves. I'd like to go to this
Okay.
course.
Okay.
So that's individualized training for groups. It's usually set at the beginning of the year, but again, with some variance for, hey, we're seeing this emerge as a trend, we need to effort that. We need to take some training in that. All the way up to the chief will okay certain levels of training. Again, maybe you want to talk a little bit about next week with the board?
So an example of that is next week, we're gonna conduct, very similar to Chief's, live burn training where he's taking an entire, unit offline. We're gonna conduct active shooter training at a level where we're gonna take each of the shifts offline for about 2.5 hours to conduct full immersion active shooter response training. That's time intensive, very similar to live burn. There's a lot of working parts to that, and it takes us some time to plan that and conduct that. So that would be an example of that capabilities where we do that on occasion over periods of time to make sure we are staying up on that capability and then enhancing it whenever we can through the training environment.
We can just talk a little bit about that, because in that specific scenario, you're looking at multiple different domains coming into it. You're talking about communications, integrations of personnel, you're talking about firearms discipline, you're talking about tactical discipline as far as movement, driving discipline as far as getting there safely, talk about medical, because we're going to be rendering aid at that point at a higher level, because you're not going to be able to bring paramedics and everybody else in, and then you're moving to investigation. So in this one exercise, we're hitting various different subsets of skill sets that we're now driving forward as a group to achieve a given outcome, or to at least see where we're at with those outcomes. And then we'll go back and reformulate, where do we as the command staff and the training staff think we did well, what needs improvement, what do we need to effort again, is there a different tack that we need to take, is there a different piece of equipment we need to introduce, and then kind of measure those against where we think we should be at this point.
That's helpful, thank you.
How often do you do that, active shooter training?
So components of it are essentially done yearly. So officers may do the tactics portion of it in an in-service training block, and then another block they may do the medical portion of it. Another block they may do the firearms handling portion of it. And then supervisors, command staff may do tabletops for the scene oversight and command and follow-ons. So there's different throughout the year.
Pieces of it.
There's different pieces of it, and then every few years we try and get something like this together where
Oh, the whole puzzle.
we put this whole package together.
Okay, because you'll have 911, some of those people off.
Dispatchers will be involved.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and again, think about it, because when we talked about component parts, that's a very important thing. Like range, our officers are way over the national standard for going to range.
Yeah.
Our people will go 10 to 11 times a year, where a lot of agencies, they go once.
Yeah.
Medical, they'll get it usually quarterly, if not beyond that. Things are reinforced, sometimes daily with the work they do, how we've set up our responses to certain things. Breaching training, they've gotten the ability to open doors, windows. That's on 2 or 3 times this year. So this amalgamation may only happen yearly, but those subset capabilities,
They're happening
the
throughout
building
the year.
blocks are happening continuously.
Okay.
It's just putting everything together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then for us, a lot of it is driven by national standards of the proficiency training. So we break ours down into 4 main groups. There's proficiency, which is the annual reoccurring, maintaining all the different skill sets. That number is established by the national standards. So we have that for the fire side, we have that for the EMS side. Next year, we're adding another component for the rescue, for technical rescue. We're finding more and more need to be doing drills on those things and rebuild capacities that we've lost with the turnover. We have initial, which is like the recruits. That's that 6 months of training they have to mandate. We also have a certification plan. So each promotion in our department requires certain certifications. We're a little behind because of the turnover, but we had it set out for this year we're doing these, this year we're doing that to keep that flow of people promoting. We also have prescriptive training, so if we identify an issue on a scene, on a training ground with someone's performance, that is supervisor driven. So basically it's kind of, most of it's the training division, creates an annual plan for a lot of this. We have input from union staff, from us, from others. That's the big main plan of like, what are we trying to accomplish this year? Prescriptive gets down to the lower level supervisors, and then we have a last step, which is on demand. That's an employee looking to go do something that wasn't on the plan. Conferences, going for particular certifications that would benefit the department, but they're particularly interested in. So those are the kind of the big components, and we have the ability from an individual level all the way up to the top level to help make those decisions.
And so this line here represents what would be the minimum amount of sort of nationally set, or is this an internal department?
That is the
line?
minimum national standards, and again, that's, for us at this level, we're trying to give the broad view, but that
Right.
goal is actually X number of hours of training per employee. That's how the
Right.
goal is written.
Right, right.
When we get evaluated, they don't care if 98% of us got it. If we
Right,
can't
they-
show
they
100% of us
then
got it.
Right, right.
So, again, that line was to show kind of a macro perception that if we're at the line and we're fully staffed, that generally means everyone's doing their job.
Right, right.
Same thing went on the months where we were way below. We're down 21 people and we're almost at the line. That's actually not bad. So, but that's, ours come from a lot of the national standards.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. The Mullen grade healthcare, there's a couple numbers I want to point out. 53 is the total number of active clients. The reason I'm going to say that is as the national standards for this type of work are being developed, we're being tapped into, it's actually recommended that each Mullen grade healthcare EMT only maintains a patient load of 10 to 12. So this is already showing how we're going above our capacity. If the crews didn't pitch in and help on some of this, that would not be possible. That is also showing that throughout the time that we've done this, some people were what we refer to that low-hanging fruit, easy to deal with, complicated in what they're doing, but in our world it was fairly easy to get them connected. We've seen a bigger occurrence, and you've also looked as the number of visits has started to climb up. We've hit some really hard cases that are just taking a lot longer. They're not the 3 visits and mutually graduation. It's taken a lot of time, energy, and effort, and we're still not reaching resolutions on some of them. But had a good month overall. Lots of agencies engaged, lots of referrals, and it is definitely a reason why there are new MIHs coming on board next year. Some big wins. Again, we get referrals, but I don't know if you saw it. If not, I will make sure I get a copy of it for the Bloom magazine. They were featured in that. We were also able to start making some connections into the healthcare world with primary care physicians that are starting to see the benefit of telehealth and dealing with some of their patients that won't come to see them. That is really unique. That is something that we've been waiting for, is to have that connection. We had another one that was a fire inspector found the issue. It's one of the first ones that have come from one side of prevention to another side of prevention, so to speak. And then one of our MIHs really went above and beyond. While we will do smoke detectors, fire extinguishers is not something that this department provides. Went out and helped find someone that was willing to fund it. And for the first time in my history...
Like an individual, just like a person in the community?
Yep. For the first time in my history, the controller's office set us up 3 non-reverting accounts.
Cool.
grant donation accounts. So we have one for fire prevention, one for MIH, and then we have one for CPR and first aid.
Cool.
To donate money towards those funds so that we can provide them. If you had like unlimited money for the fire extinguisher, where would they go? Like, where do you place them?
I don't know that I would want unlimited because it would become a money pit.
Yeah.
With so many rentals in Bloomington, we would put them in everywhere, but a lot of people are stealing them on their way out the door. We do the same
Right.
thing. We put a smoke detector in, go back a year later and it's missing again. They've ripped the old one down and taken it with them. If we did things like that, it may turn into that type of issue.
Okay.
But in a grand scheme, I don't care how much it costs. We would prefer them to have it, know how to use it.
Kitchens, number 1 spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you look at it, kitchen, number one thing is cooking fires, but ideally one per floor. So if you've got a basement, 2-story house, you should have a minimum of 3. They recommend them in high hazard areas, garage, kitchen. If you got a grill, things like that.
I gotta go
Yeah.
buy some more fire extinguishers.
Say, I need to get one.
I will tell you,
Too.
yeah, one of the most informative tutorials I got was from, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name right now, but one of
Tom
your,
Fagola.
yes, about insurance and how you should have a certain amount to be well insured because he's seen things where insurance isn't covering it if you don't have a minimum.
Oh, wow.
Carbon monoxide and fire.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, so then I went on Amazon and just, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and for my family too.
Wow.
Yeah.
If we had unlimited funds, a lot of departments draw the line on rentals, and I've always told them I don't care who owns the building. We don't want someone dying because there wasn't a smoke detector in the building, things like that. But now we have a potential method where we've had it in the past where someone's like, how do I donate? I want to help. If it went to the general fund, I would not feel good about taking a donation that got eaten up by the general fund and may or may not be used for that purpose.
Yeah.
But we now have 3 accounts that can be used directly for that purpose.
Has he like, or is there any kind of written thing like for homeowners or renters or what have you, like magnets or something like, hey, you should have this many fire detectors or this many, like just like a little like quarter sheet, from there. I don't know. I don't know if this exists. Does that exist?
Yeah, we've got flyers, trifolds, hands out, stickers, magnets,
Yeah.
wristbands.
Okay, awesome. Because I feel like sometimes like people need to see it and like they don't know,
The best success we've had in compliance is teaching the kids, and then they go home, and then, so after Fire Prevention Week, which was last week, over the next week, we'll get a ton of people calling and say, my kid's bugging me about it.
Yeah.
They say I need to get new smoke detectors because ours are old and dusty and yellow, and so that's actually one of our best compliances, just to get the kids involved and then they
Yeah.
hound the parents.
I love that.
So do you do the usual advice of you check and you change your batteries when you change your clock?
We're having a weird thing. New tech out there is the sealed detectors that are good for 10 years. So they still need to be checked monthly, but there is no battery change. It's throw away the whole detector, which if you didn't know, every 10 years you're supposed to do that anyway. So it is something that's out there now that makes it a little more difficult.
I have so much to do when I get home.
Sorry.
Landfill.
Trip to Menards on the way home.
Right.
Oh, gosh.
But anyway, so moving in, any more
Compostable
questions on
smoke
statistics?
detectors?
No, it's really helpful.
Very
Thank you.
good, yeah.
Thank you.
And again, if you ever have any questions, we do free in-home safety inspections. We'll send someone out to tell you everything that's wrong with your house and how you may get hurt or die.
Oh,
We just contact,
Contact the fire department.
okay,
The board, you can send me an email, but
okay.
we get requests all the time through social media, connecting me with Tom Fagola, our public,
He's great.
he's our public
Yeah.
educator. I think the city retitled him community engagement officer, but he does so much more than that.
Great.
So, general business, I got a few things, including an invitation for the 10 recruits. We have a swearing-in date of November 6th at 2
great.
p.m. We normally do not do swearing in until they graduate, but with the holidays, it was impossible to find a date where the clerk, the mayor, everyone could be there. So we are doing a swearing in before they graduate and badge pinning. We'll just take the badges back from them until they officially graduate.
What time is it again?
It is November 6th at 2 p.m. and it'll be here at Council Chambers.
Okay.
The other thing is, again, just with that, we've got a current hiring process moving forward with 7. They are in the per physical portion of it. I don't know if Max talked about it last time, but scheduling for that has been a nightmare. I don't know if it's been for you guys, but normally we used to call and say we need an appointment, and they'd be like, great, send them next week. The soonest they could even see anybody was mid-November. So all of our new hires are just sitting there waiting because they can't even go see the perf doctor to get a physical and psych eval. But currently, we still stay engaged with all 7. They're still interested in a job. So we'll keep pushing forward with that and hopefully move to a mid-January hire date. I think also it'd be important to give kind of a quick update on all the projects. Station 1, Fire Station 1 downtown went out for bid. We have a pre-bid meeting on Monday where we meet with all the potential people that'll put in a bid. They physically see the building, walk through the building, see what they're getting themselves into. That is the last step for us before bids close out and then they get awarded. They are looking with our construction management company to have ground broken before the end of the year, and they are still projecting a mid to fourth quarter moving into that building.
Okay, next
So,
year.
Yes, so we're super excited about that. Station 3, I actually have plans here that I would be more than happy to pass around. These are not public consumption, but these are the draft design for Station 3. I will say 2 things with that, is we still got one really big player that we have to bring on board with that. All of this we have to run through IU. So I'll just make sure that you're all kept up to date on that.
This is the new IU Bloomington.
It's not new, it's taking the old and doing a major remodel and an addition.
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, we really wanted new, but that didn't work out.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's a $2.5 million planned remodel and additional space, redoing all the utilities within it, the roofing membranes, you name it. It's fully upgrading the space to current fire station design standards.
Kitchen's a bit
What
small.
is the cost share with IU? for this?
0.
None?
They refuse to pay any of it. So that may be an
small.
issue for the next administration to address, but
Wow.
yeah, they backed out of a potential cost share of a new station, told us that we could build there, which under our current lease, they don't have to provide any funding for, and that's where the option they chose.
Is there, like parking for your team?
Yep, there is parking. We are going to update, that's a building plan, that's not a site plan.
Oh, okay.
That would show the parking, but it would be where it's at, it'll just be cleaned up, updated.
Okay, and there'll be ample parking, because I know that's a tough area to find street parking.
Yeah, no, we have plenty for staff. The big issue is during shift change, it's double the number of people there. But you don't build a parking lot for double the number of people. So we deal with some of that in the short term. Same thing will happen in Station 1. We requested street parking spaces and were denied. During shift change, there's literally no parking at all.
What period of time is their shift overlap?
Shift change is officially at 7, but you have overlap starting from 6 until around 8. Most people are in place before 7, but then not everyone leaves like at 7
Yeah.
The AM or PM?
a.m.
AM, okay.
Yep. So, and then the training logistics, we've had good meetings with utilities about, there are portions of that property that are still owned by them. The current site that we're on for police and fire at the training center, there is a section leased out. I think it's a 100-year lease. The site that I would like to build on is outside of that property line. So we will be negotiating with them to get a little bit better piece of property that's way out of the floodplain. After everything I know at Station 1, we don't want any of that coming back around. But we will be going in front of the Board of Public Works here relatively soon with contract addendums. So Station 3 is ready to move forward towards engineering design. We'll have to do an addendum on that contract before we can do that. And then the training logistics, we're not ready to do the addendum, but it'll get one as well for the full engineering design and site plan. So any questions on that?
Nope.
All right, purchases, expenditures, we've got several large ones. We got $6,200 of the $12,500 for Station 3 due diligence. We've also got a bill for $410,000 for the Station 1 engineering design of the $547,000 that was in the contract. We have $50,000 in bonuses for those new employees, the 10 probies There was a $5,000 signing bonus when they graduate recruit school. So that is a $50,000 liability hanging over that will get paid out in November. We also have around $42,000 in ITS capital replacement. So computers, monitors, a lot of that. And this is all replacement equipment. None of it's like brand new, just to add. And I will also make you aware, it will come back in insurance reimbursement, but we ordered a new side-by-side. If you didn't get a chance to see it, we ordered 2 brand new ones 2 years ago. Showed up on like the 3rd call that one of the side-by-sides, it's like a 4-person sport utility, like ATV vehicle, was hit by a tree and a power pole and totaled it. Nearly hurt the crew, but we got approval, got all the claims done, so we did order a new one. Hopefully it doesn't take 2 years to get here. But that is $65,000 for that new ATV, and that's
Was
it.
anyone injured in that?
What's that?
Accident? Was anyone injured in that?
No, where the tree hit right behind the cab and completely crushed the tail end of that vehicle and the fire pump and water tank and all that, but it was about 3.5, 4 inches away from causing a major problem for us.
What do you use it for?
That one we bought specifically for the parks and trails.
Okay.
Stationed at Station 5 to help us get through and on to Switchyard. And then during certain portions of the season, it helps us get to the back end of Griffey.
Okay.
So we do still have our medical version of it, but the fire version of it got totaled. And then that's it for large expenditures. And then personnel issues, we have 2 on the paid family leave. That's that new benefit of 6 weeks paid leave for baby bonding. We're excited to support that. I need to not jinx this, but for the first time probably, and as long as I can remember, we have no one out on long-term sick. We currently have 5 openings. That's 3 firefighters, 1 chauffeur, 1 battalion chief. Just a reminder, our interim deputy chief, his position is battalion chief. Until we get a commitment from the new administration to solidify that appointment, we will not fill that battalion chief's position because that's where he would fall back to if they do not solidify. A reminder that we also have 4 new positions next year. The assistant chief of operations puts us in par with the management staff of the police a little bit. Chief, deputy chief, we have the 2 assistant chiefs just like they have the captains. So that will be 1 of administration, 1 of operations. The new operations chief will be dealing with a lot of these issues that we report on, but they will also actively supervise the 3 shifts and start getting things online so all 3 shifts operate the same. And that's it for personnel.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Great report. We don't have any old business or new business, and I don't believe we have anybody for petitions and communications. So do I have a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned.
Second.